Colton,
How are we even introing this?
how are you feeling on this fun day, specifically after last Saturday?
You know, I think I'm looking
I
for a
feel
new.
great.
I'm looking for a new co-host. So if anyone out there wants to be,
You probably
a
want somebody else
co-host-
that's a loser.
Huh?
You probably want
Wow.
somebody else that's a loser.
Wow.
It's a good thing we have.
Very prideful. Maybe we'll do this episode on pride.
I'm not
Mr.
prideful.
PJ.
If you actually remember the game clearly, I sat there, I clapped when my team scored, but I didn't really let anybody else hear it.
Yeah. Well, I did not enjoy the ending. The
Why
game
don't
was
you-
fun. The trip was fun. We went out to Morgantown, West Virginia for the West Virginia Penn State game. As you know, PJ's a Penn State fan. I'm a West Virginia fan. There was a bet on the line. I lost the bet.
Yeah,
We have not followed through yet.
yeah.
We
It was
lost.
all in all, I'm just happy that I got to enjoy that moment. Because usually I was actually 0-2 at Penn State games. Now I'm 1-2. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you could experience that at my expense.
Right.
But the trip was fun. We took Garrett up with us. That is Director Raina's husband. He made an appearance last week.
Yes.
Plumber.
Who is not a football fan, but
I think he is now.
I think he is now. And I
We've
think he had a-
converted him to the cult.
Yeah. And the whole premise wasn't us to just go, well, originally it was just to go up to the game because it was our teams. But all in all, I think it was one of those times that we get to spend and just fellowship and enjoy, 38 hours of just guys trip, traveling, eating Subway, McDonald's.
About 18 hours in the car total.
Yeah, 18 hours, rain delay.
2.5 hours. We
yeah,
brought
how
Pops
many
back
different
with us. What was
Yeah.
your impression of Pops?
I think he is just a fun guy to be around, to be honest. He's living life for his age, so
For sure.
it was a good time and made the trip more enjoyable. So offered a lot of wisdom in the realm of West Virginia football. He didn't have a lot of confidence in the rest of the year, though.
We don't either. We're not trusting the climb anymore. But if you want to watch that vlog, the vlog is on my YouTube channel, Coleton Furlow. Go watch it. I think it's pretty entertaining. Who are you?
I don't know. I'm just here. I just
Wait
popped
a
in.
minute. Who are you?
Speaking of somebody that could probably relate to you in a way this season on
Well, he's not a football
going to be
fan,
used to. He's a
Uh,
USC fan.
I'm
but
a
he's
Gamecock
not a
fan.
football fan.
I mean, I will watch the Gamecocks, but I'm probably not a football fan because I'm a Gamecock fan. It's because, I mean,
But-
every single time I watch it,
That's
I
respectable.
get, you
But
know.
they have a better record right now than Clemson.
That's true.
That's true.
Take that as a win. Strike it up.
Old Dominion, Georgia.
Yeah,
Pretty
I was
similar.
I was about to say.
What is Old Dominion's mascot?
Monarchs.
Monarchs?
It's
What
like a
they-
lion, like like the king with a little crown on it. Does that camera keep going out? That's unfortunate. We have a live studio audience today. We have both the children of Director Rena and producer Hope here today. We have Cooper. Where's baby Cooper? Oh, he's making an appearance. Look at him. He's just so cute. And then, yeah, that's Amelia over there. She's cracking up laughing. So if you hear these things in the background, we support babies and life here. That's the moral of the story. Okay, so who is this guy that's sitting here?
Carson. I'll just introduce him. Carson
I don't
is
know who he
a
is.
college student at the University of South Carolina, sophomore or junior year.
It would be my senior year this year, but taking a year off due to some health problems.
Okay. And so we met probably April of 2023.
Yep.
And he was attending Langston. His parents go to a church down the road from here, but he was attending here. Got to meet him, connect with him, and it just sparked a friendship. And so now, Carson, I think I would just describe you as like a devout follower of Jesus. I know you're going to go and a disciple who makes disciples, a prime example of that, but also plans to be a pharmacist eventually, Lord willing. And what's one fun fact that you would want people to know about you?
About me, I'm horrible like with these kind of like icebreaker like questions. I've like always been bad at them.
He's so humble that he doesn't like to talk about himself.
That's fair.
That's a stand-up guy right there.
Carson, though, is really he's a part of our college ministry here at Langston, and he's here today because we're talking about one topic today that we're going to get to on discipleship. And one thing you need to know is each one of us are in a group together for discipleship. And so we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But
first, we're going to do a couple movie reviews. Now, the first two, y'all didn't see them. One hasn't even come out yet. I just got back from a trip, a work trip for CPAC to Dallas, Texas. I had to go down there for a red carpet premiere for the new movie God's Not Dead and God We Trust. And let me tell you, y'all are going to watch it. We might even take a little podcast venture out to watch it. It comes out September 12th, I think. But it's basically, the premise is the pastor who's been in the, have you seen the original
ones, yeah.
God's Not Dead? Okay, so the main pastor, the blonde-haired dude, David A.R. White, who is actually a hilarious person and a great guy in person. But the premise is there is an open seat in, I think, the state of Arkansas for Congress. The congressman dies, and then there's this Democrat who's a state senator who is going to run for that seat. But the Republicans, quote unquote, they don't actually call Democrat and Republican, but you can tell because one side stands for God and one side is basically saying for evil. But the Republican Party is trying to find a good candidate, a good, solid, godly candidate that they can run against this like evil guy. Do you know who George Soros is? Have you heard of that guy?
I probably have seen.
He's like an evil billionaire who's running like all the behind the scenes things. Anyway, this is what this guy looks like. Reminds me of. But the Republican Party finds this pastor because he stood up and testified in Congress years ago, talking about the importance of having God in government, and there's no such thing as separation of church and state, which that's going to be a topic one time. So anyway, they convince him to run. The campaign was very dirty at times, and the campaign consultants wanted this preacher to go like low and like get dirt on the candidate and just be like a dirty type campaign. And he was like, no, we're going to stick to our truths. We're going to stick to the moral high ground, and we can just beat him with, God on our side and speaking truth. He ends up winning, and the Democrat side, this like evil power just kind of like crumbles, and it just basically restored hope to America that if you put God at the forefront of our nation, that he will work. He will work in the country. What's the verse of, if my people who are called by my name will seek my face and turn away from their sins, then I'll forgive them and heal their land. That was like the whole premise of it. And so I just think it was a very good movie that we need to see as a country right before the election. They started this movie in 2021. And it was funny because everything that has happened since, they kind of like predicted it. Like everything that happened in the movie. They talked about like the COVID stuff, but then the inflation, the economy, the cultural division that we have, it was like laid out perfectly. And I felt like I was watching the 2024 election play out. You guys can't even comment because you didn't see it yet, but we're going to take y'all to go see it. Second movie I saw this week was the Ronald Reagan movie. Amazing. It wasn't like a documentary style. We're going to take y'all to see that one too. Just people need to know, like, what freedom looked like, what it looked like as a country to put God first, to have a godly president, or a man of God in the White House, to see how America was thriving, America was prosperous, and America wasn't bowing down to this evil cultural division that we see in today's society. But it wasn't like a documentary style. It was a full-blown movie. Loved it. Now, the third topic I want to discuss, and this is where y'all can chime in. Unfortunately, we saw that there was another school shooting down in Georgia, and I think everyone's thoughts and prayers go out to them. The thing that I have a real problem with right now is there is one side of this country that uses tragedy to fundraise and campaign on. And I don't know if y'all saw this. Y'all can chime in at any point. But there is a certain party out there that is now blaming the Republican Party for these crises because a lack of quote-unquote gun control. They're saying that Republicans are responsible for children being shot and killed in schools, and they're using it to fearmonger. They are using it to raise money, and they're using it to try to get a certain woman into the White House. Now, a couple years ago, Kamala Harris, she said that they should defund school resource officers.
Mm.
And it just so turns out that the school resource officers were the guys to stop the shooter and put him into custody. So I just kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on the way that we are so divided in America right now that people are using tragedy like this to use it for political gain. And this is kind of like the first time we're actually diving into politics a little bit on this podcast. So I just want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think we don't dismiss the fact that it's a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
A 14-year-old, I can't even fathom or imagine the fact that he knows or comprehends like the actions that he's taking in taking the life of somebody else. And there's so many factors that play into that. You know, what's the home life like? How did he get access to a lethal weapon? How did he get into the school with a weapon? So like all of these things transpire, but I think at the end of the day too, we can play both sides. We can play the defense mechanism. We can talk about gun control and all of these things. But I think at the end of the day, evil is going to continue to exist in this world, and that is so why we need to grasp the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
We need something that is never changing in a world that is constantly changing and is constantly continuing in this realm of evil doing, and I could talk about like the tragedy itself, and we should talk about the tragedy. We should talk about how we should be on the front lines of praying and seeking to offer counsel and better, I guess, home life to kids, and we can take this 1,000 different directions, but we need a God who remains the same even when we don't. And I keep saying, like, I keep referring to the last podcast, but it just plays so well into what we talk about the next week. We need a God that remains, because it is a world that is constantly doing things that I don't know if they comprehend themselves. And so James talks about the idea of, not allowing our own intrusive thoughts to basically take us in a direction to lead us into sin, which then leads us into death. And so it's important for us to wrap our minds around the fact that we need Christ. And a lot of people, I don't think, recognize the need, first of all, which is a scary portion of it. But yeah, I think evil is going to continue to run its course, and it's going to look all kinds of different ways. And we as a people, of course, we read scripture that says our war is not against flesh and blood, but that's how we treat it.
So to bring Karson in on this, there's a lot of people out there on a certain side who supports abortion, and this kind of sounds crazy, but I'm going to tie the two together here in a second. I want your thoughts on it, because you and I have talked about abortion, and you've heard many arguments with me regarding the topic of abortion. But these people are beating the drum on, the school shooting thing, that how Republicans aren't protecting the kids, blah, blah, blah. But in the same day, Kamala Harris made a post about how Donald Trump is going to hurt women and basically take their rights away because we're going to have abortion bans in this country.
Yeah.
So make it make sense to me how they can say that we are bad for, protecting the Second Amendment, which should be protected because it's part of the Constitution. It's not correlated to school shootings. Yet in the same day, they still support abortion, which more children, more human lives die from abortion than any school shooting in history combined. So can you make sense of that? Like, why do these people, I think it's like an evil mindset, but why do they think this way?
It's a double standard, honestly. I mean, like, I honestly can't make it make sense. I mean, I don't think you can make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they'll try to, go back on the fact that, life doesn't begin until week 1, week 2, week 3. Well, but there's all sorts of apologetic answers that you can give as to why, week 1, week 2, the heartbeat, or, they're not conscious yet. Well, but then how do you deal with someone who's on like a ventilator and like they're not conscious? So like, can you just take that person's life? Obviously not.
Right.
So there's all of those different like apologetic responses, and even going into like the science of it, because I love science. I love like pharmacy, chemistry, all that stuff. Even the science points out that life begins at conception. So I don't see, there's no logical way that I can see that abortion is morally right or that it's right at all. But to tie into the like spiritual aspect, it's just sin. I mean,
Right.
like my thoughts and prayers goes out to the school shooting that just happened, and it really is a tragedy. But the only thing that is responsible for it, because earlier you said that one party was saying that this party is responsible for it. The only thing that is responsible is sin. And like PJ pointed out, the fix to that is the gospel.
Right.
It's Jesus Christ dying on that cross for our sin. So abortion, school shootings, it all comes down to sin, and that's the biggest problem. It's not one political party over the other. It's sin, and we have a solution in Christ Jesus.
Okay, so I want to get your last thoughts on this before we move into the whole discipleship conversation. I think these two things are going to be at the forefront of the topics regarding the election. We have just 2 months left before this election happens, and I think it's one of the most crucial elections in our entire country's history. What is your message to the people who are trying to navigate like who to vote for? And we'll kind of like discuss this more as we get closer to the election. But I think there is a pretty stark divide between the different parties, what they believe. Yeah. And one is kind of closer to biblical principles than the other. And, not everyone's perfect, but what's your message to like Christians out there who are trying to navigate through, what are they going to do come November?
Yeah, I think that we can easily, I live in the South, so I understand, we have stores down here that are centered around Donald Trump. Neither candidate is perfect by any means, just like any human being in that manner. But I think when it comes down to something like this, Christians need to know that we should take action. We can't just sit on the sidelines. It's much like our relationship with Jesus. We are called to not only abide in him, but also he calls us to do something. That's the Great Commission that ties into that. So vote wisely, pray fervently, and understand that there is a side that needs to be chosen here between the two candidates at hand, one that represents more Christian values than the others. And so look into it yourself. Don't just listen to the media or social media, any of those things, but also just wisely seek counsel and vote. I think that every Christian should indeed vote, and there is a right party to vote for.
I think that was kind of like the whole moral of the story in the God's Not Dead 2 is like Christians have to vote. 40 million Christians didn't vote. Another 15 million Christians aren't even registered to vote. We can make a difference in this country. If we all come together and rise up as one church, we can make America, not to take it away from a certain person, great again though. But for real, the only way that you can make America great again, I think, is if you make America godly again. And if you make America Christian again, that's the only way it's going to be prosperous and, move forward. Now, to move on to like the whole discipleship thing, I think that is like something that we need in America as well, is people who are raising other people up to be men and women of God. And you're kind of doing that here. You're leading our discipleship group. So what made you like want to do that? Because I think it's just so necessary in today's society and culture.
I think the book that we're actually doing points out the fact that there is one ingredient that's missing from the local church, and that's discipleship. I can't speak on behalf of the entirety of the local church as a whole, but I know that was one area that I was lacking myself. That we have Bible study groups here, we have midweek, we have corporate worship together, all these things that are they all play their part and they're all important. But one area that I found that I was personally lacking was discipleship. Now, the question is, what is discipleship? Jesus describes it in the Great Commission that we are, as Christians, called to be disciples who make disciples. A disciple is simply a follower of Jesus. Now, it's easy to say, well, I can read the Bible and do that myself. Yes, in a way, you're not wrong, but it is so much greater, it is so much better to do that with fellow believers. And so we started this small account group. I noticed our pastor started doing it with 2 different groups of men in our church. And so I thought to myself, well, why aren't we doing the same thing? Because it should be a replication process. So our whole summer premise was to basically we had summer groups for our college ministry. So I break up our thing into 4 different seasons throughout the year. So the fall is really just it is focused in on evangelism. It's focused in on outreach, and so we're trying to reach the campus. We're trying to get people involved in the local church. Winter is more of community based. We are doing things together. We're doing life together. We are going on trips together and just creating that community that we're all called to. Spring is again mission based, and so we have a spring break mission trip and do things like that, gearing up towards the end of the semester and hanging into summer, which then we run into a roadblock because a lot of churches, they take the summertime off, or they are maybe not doing a certain, like college. A lot of college ministries, students are back home, so they're focused on just prepping for the next fall. Well, we have a lot of students here that stay locally. And so I thought to myself, what is one method that we haven't really attacked yet? And that was discipleship. So we had guys and girls groups, and in that, all are welcome. And we dig into the Word together. We are divided up. The guys met at my house this summer. Girls met at the church with Eden, who was on the podcast last week. And we really just zoned into what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? What does it mean to be a disciple who makes disciples? We did the book Travis Hagnew's. Oh my goodness, what was it called? It's not that one.
Not that one. Discipleship, discipling. What is it, Karson? Do you remember?
I do not.
Something discipling, discipleship.
I'm gonna look it up. I have to now, because it was honestly such a better resource that I used.
How to? I forget.
I know it. I could see the book.
We are great disciples, guys. We should forget the book. Raina's got it.
Distinctive discipleship.
Yeah.
Our youth
Director Rainer.
Our student ministry is actually going through that now with the students on Sunday mornings. But we saw that, and out of that, I was like, okay, Lord, who then do we want to see take, or who is expressing those things that they want to go deeper and deeper in discipleship? And that led to our small group that meets every week now for a year. And we're just growing in the basics of Christianity, but also in areas that we didn't even know that we were going to discover. So I'm excited. We've only been, 1 week in? Mm-hmm. And so entering into week 2. Discipleship, though, is simply growing in our faith, growing in the sanctification process. And there's actually one verse I want to read from the Gospel of Luke. And it talks about, Jesus is talking to the disciples about the cost of discipleship. And it says, now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned and said to them, so this is Jesus talking to a multitude. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, desiring to build a tower, does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what kind of king, going out to encounter another king in war, will not sit down first and deliberate whether he is able with 10,000 to meet with him who comes with 20,000? And if not, while the other is yet a great way off, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, any of you who do not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple. And so the whole premise is this. It's not telling you to go home and tell your mom and dad you hate them. It's not that. It's actually helping us kind of weigh
Hey, Mom.
Yeah.
I hate you.
It's actually helping us understand that Christ isn't just on this scale of like God is first, family second, work third. It's actually, it's like a pie graph where Christ is the center and then everything else in your life formulates around that. Like, to be a disciple of Jesus makes us understand that we must abide in Christ. He isn't, your theology's messed up if you just think he's got to be number one, because that list is going to constantly be running around like crazy because of the busyness that goes on. Rather, center your life around this thing or this personhood of who Jesus is. And then it creates in you a disciple-making mentality, where then everything in your life, whether you eat, you drink, you work, you breathe, you brush your teeth, whatever you do it to the glory of God. And so being a disciple is being a follower of Jesus. And what better way to do that than in community with other people?
And then this past week, we went and saw, was it The Forge?
Yes.
Forge movie. So, Karson, you were there. What did you think about the movie in regards to like how discipleship should happen, just like in today's culture?
Well, I think first and foremost that, you know, discipleship should be in community. You know, if you watch the movie The Forge, like the older man, Mr. Moore, like brought Isaiah into the fold of his community, and like, hey, this is something I've done over the years, and that you can do with these other young men and even older men to pour into you. But man, that movie was just, it was so good because it highlighted exactly the path of discipleship, you know. And when PJ was going over that verse, the word that kept on popping out to me was this, you know, the cost of it, because in that movie there's many things that Isaiah lays down, you know, and just completely like just gets rid of, you know, and like that's the cost of discipleship, you know. If he is Lord, you know, that a phrase that was used in the movie a lot was, if he is Lord, then who am I to not lay this down at his feet so then I can continue to serve him better.
Right.
Like it was just such a great picture. And then like many scenes where it was just Isaiah in the bedroom just talking to God, I'm like, I relate to that so much, because I've had those same exact conversations, you know, whether I was yelling or, you know, crying, or, you know, like maybe no words were even being said at all. But it just highlighted, you know, the salvation, the sanctification of a person's life, and overall very edifying movie and production.
Yeah, I think there was like one point where it was towards the end of the movie where they were all kind of together after Isaiah was already being discipled and he gave his life to Christ and everything. But at the end, there was Amelia's back here making our sound effects. But basically, the older gentleman started discipling 15 different men, and they were all in this one room together. And in the beginning of the movie, Isaiah was talking to the man's wife, and he found out that they had a son who was tragically killed, I think, by a drunk driver, correct?
A drunk driver.
So when they get to
Spoiler alert, by the way.
if you want to watch
we
it,
should have
sorry.
said this in the beginning.
But once you get to that part, at the end, they're all together, and Isaiah asks this guy, well, how do you know, what is it, Mr. Moore? How do you know him? And basically he was like, well, I was the guy who, you know,
Killed his son
with the drunk driving. And what my biggest takeaway was like forgiveness. And that kind of hit me hard, because not that I have like bitterness in my heart, but like there's some things that like I hold on to and I think I forgive, but then like things come back up or different situations happen, and I'm like, man, did I really forgive them? So what is your like takeaway from like the power of like forgiveness in that moment?
Well, one, another spoiler alert. I think that is a common theme, because Isaiah is that his name?
Yeah.
Isaiah is growing constantly in discipleship. Like, what does that mean? He's growing in the knowledge and understanding of who Jesus is. And so throughout the movie, you see that he's already involved in this group of men that are taking him in. He has a mentor in his life. And then, lo and behold, his father, who hasn't been in the picture forever now, shows up because he's the delivery guy for the company that Isaiah's working for. Isaiah sees him, runs off in anger. And rightfully so. From a human perspective, we're like, yeah, I think we'd all react the same way, if not worse.
Because his dad wasn't in the picture.
Yes,
and
he had a lot of resentment towards his father. And it took time. And his mentor was the one that just said, hey, I understand, but the only way to get over this is to learn to forgive. And in that moment, of course, we're all like, man, it's easier said than done.
Mhm.
And that's the truth. But then as Christians, our minds have to go back to the cross. And we have to remember the fact that Jesus was hung on a cross, even for our sin. Like, this isn't something that is, we're like, man, those people are what hung him on the cross. No, it was us as human beings. And what that meant was he decided, hey, I'm going to take your place. That death that you were supposed to die, I'm going to go ahead and step in your place for that. And that's a representation for us all. And so when I think about forgiveness, I think about so many people that have wronged me. It is uncomparable to what Christ had done and what he had taken, and the forgiveness that we have now in Christ should paint a picture of how we replicate that to other people.
Well, the study that we're going through is kind of like preparing us. So we're learning how to be a disciple, but it's preparing us to disciple others. And I think that was a big theme of the movie. It was kind of like pass the baton.
Yep.
So he was discipled, and then he's raising other men up to be disciplers. Is that the correct word?
Disciples who make disciples.
Yeah, disciples who make disciples. And then it just kind of, it's a domino effect. So Karson, I don't know if like you've discipled anyone at all, but what do you think like the steps are after you learn how to become a disciple to then further pass that baton?
Well, I think having a resource, like this book that we're all going through right now, is very important. Just because just to have like a follow along, to have a day by day activity that you're going to do, whether you're praying, you're meditating, and just having that that tool available to you. Because we have the Bible, and of course we're going to get into the Bible, and Bible study is an integral part to it. But to have that tool to just keep you accountable, to keep your prayer list just in a nice and fashionable order, I think is a very good and necessary tool.
Yeah, so this next question is kind of like two parts. So the first part is Isaiah was very against and pushing back, not necessarily like the church as a whole, but his mom went to church and she kind of was like, hey, come to church with me. He was like, nah, that's your thing. So I think there's a lot of people, especially my generation. You're in my generation, we found out. You are Gen Z, so feel proud. You're still young. But there was a study that came out that Gen Z is the least religious generation of all time. So what is your message to like the people who might have someone in their lives that are like knocking on the door, like, hey, come to church, and like, trying to disciple them, and they just like keep pushing it away? What is your message to that guy or girl?
I wish I can give you like the wisest counsel in the world here. And that's a common misconception that I have as a pastor. Like, I always have to have the right thing to say, but it's just not realistic. And so mine's this. Again, I think I said it a few weeks ago, taste and see. I think that, and what I mean by that is, don't just come in one random Sunday morning and sit during a message, act like you're paying attention, and then just walk away and be like, okay, yeah, it wasn't for me. Taste and see, meaning like give it a month, dip your toe in the water in the realm of community, dip your toe in the water when it comes to being a part of a local church, reading your Bible, challenge yourself to, hey, I'm going to read one of these Gospels, and we'll go from there. And so we saw that in the woman at the well, and that's a part of history. Everybody has a subjective truth in the world. We see that all over the place. We see that with what's going on with the school shooting. We see that's going to happen with the election. Everybody's subjectively living in a truth, but there is a universal truth, and the gospel is the universal truth. I will die on that hill. Everybody believes in something, and so the only religion that the God himself came and took the place of those he was coming to save is Christianity, the God of the Bible. And so I would just say, find a community, find a local church, taste and see for yourself that the Lord indeed is good.
Okay.
And also just to add to that, make an effort to serve. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you would be surprised of how easy it is to get into a church and serve in a church.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I went up to Columbia, I just went to the First Baptist Church that was, I agreed with on a theology basis. They were solid in that, and then I just like went up to the college pastor and said, hey, I mean, if you need help with a event or anything, just let me know. I have a truck, we could load stuff in the back. He's like, yeah, can you actually be here tonight? I'd be like, yeah, I'm coming. And it was just that easy to get involved, and then when I met you, or I met Keith, Pastor Keith, sorry.
Keith Altree.
Yes, our student pastor. I was like, hey, if there's ever an event that you need help with, I would come out and help out. And that's just how easy it is to actually serve and get involved in a community and with a group of my believers to just do life with.
Yeah, so I lied. This is a 3-part question. So part 2 is basically for what is your message to the person who feels like, I want to be discipled. Like, I know that there's things that I need to work on in my life and that I want to grow. What is your message to that person to learning how to like reach out or finding like the right person to reach out to be discipled? That was like a thing in this book is, would you know how to ask someone how to, if they could disciple you? So what is your message to that person?
Just ask. I mean, just go to your pastor, go to, someone that has like been in the faith a long time, and just ask them to disciple you, because 9 times out of 10, well, I say almost, 10 times out of 10, a person will be overjoyed to just be involved in your faith journey and just be the one to disciple you. So, I mean, if I went up to any one of the pastors here at Langston, any one of them, I mean,
not PJ,
not me,
not him, would be more than happy to disciple me. So I just say with them, just ask. And I get it. If you're shy or you're an introvert, if you have a stuttering problem, I mean, I have my times where I can barely speak, but study your way through asking them. Like, it's that important.
I think it's funny. You do great. Like when you start like preaching or, giving a message here, the Bible study, it's like crystal clear.
Yeah.
Like the words, the Lord's just like working through you. The Holy Spirit's just guiding you through it. I love to see it.
Yeah. If I have time to like prepare a message or anything, I don't stutter at all. But like even in this podcast, it's if it's right here, like off the top of your head, I have a little bit of trouble with it, but
that's fine. You're doing great. So were you gonna say something?
I'm like, just on that note, like I think that's the common misconception. Like we're like, whether you're discipling or you want to be discipled, like we tend to say, well, I don't know how. And
that was gonna be my third question. Is like the person who wants to disciple someone, like what would you say to them?
Well, I think there's 2. I wanna piggyback off what Karson just talked about. Like, even in the book, which shout out to A Discipleship Journey. There's 2 parts to this by DJ Horton, who is the pastor at, oh my goodness, the Mill, Church at the Mill in Spartanburg, South Carolina. He's the one that wrote this. It's a great tool, and that's what it's called. It's just a tool to use to equip disciples who make disciples. So check it out if you're looking for a resource. But also, Karson just said, like, Carson's just a normal human being. Like, he will tell you, like, he would tell you, like, I think, and DJ pointed out in the book, like, 9 times out of 10, they don't know how to answer those questions. Like, how, if I were to ask somebody to disciple me, would I know how to?
I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, and I think anybody, because what are we basing that on? Our own gifts. We're basing it on, like, who we are, how much knowledge we know. And so, rather, it's just, like, being vulnerable. It's like, man, I want to grow more in Jesus. And if Karson were to come to me and I realize, like, I have too much on my plate, like, then I'm going to help him find somebody that can disciple him. Exactly. Like, it's that simple. Or if you're like, okay, I want to be a disciple maker. What are the qualifications? What are the standards? And that's what we're looking at. And you start reading through and you're like, man, I don't meet any of these. But if you are a Christ follower, you can be a disciple maker. I think one of the greatest pieces of advice that I've ever been given was find a mentor and be a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So find somebody that will mentor you. I still have a guy that I talk to every Thursday in Tennessee, Brett Williams, and I talk about
Shout out to him, because we had a about 30-minute long discussion in the
We
car
did.
about just different theological
all
questions that we
kinds
had.
of stuff.
So shout out to him for actually answering the call,
Yes.
number one, and then talking through it. And then he was like, "Hey, if you have any other questions, just call back."
And
That's a real guy.
That's discipleship. Like
Mhm.
it's literally us. Hey, we're gonna meet at 7 a.m. for coffee every Thursday. Is there a curriculum? Nope. I just want to meet, and I just want to have conversations. Sometimes that's all that it is. And so, man, start simple, start small, but find a mentor in your life that you know you can commit to talking to or meeting with weekly. And then if you're looking to mentor somebody, like there are people all around you that are willing to be mentored.
So to kind of wrap up the entire discipleship topic, last question, y'all both can chime in, but why do you think it's so important right now? Like we've mentioned several times, America's divided. We have all this cultural division. We have the spiritual battles. We have the cultural battles. We have political division. Everyone hates each other. There's so much animosity. Gen Z is going further and further away from God. America is just going further and further away from God. I think the entire world just keeps going further and further away from God. But I think there is a group of people who really want to dive into the Word, get to know who Jesus is on a more deeper level, and then go out and basically live out the Great Commission of just go and disciple all nations. So what is your final thoughts on the importance of people, A, being discipled, and B, people discipling other people?
Carson, I'll let you answer first.
Yeah. So the importance of like being a disciple, and specifically being a disciple and not just a churchgoer, a pew warmer, you know, is the
Talk
difference.
to 'em.
The difference between that is either you're being a lukewarm Christian or you're actually being a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know a lukewarm Christian is not even a Christian at all.
Yeah.
It's the ones that just go to church, just say that they believe in Jesus, and then there's no fruit in their
I
life.
think that's such a big problem
Yes.
in today's society is, you know, I call them little C Christians. You know, they don't have that salvation, and they just say that. I won't even go way
That's
deep
a
into
whole
that.
nother
Yeah,
episode. Whole nother
but
episode.
there's just so many people, like you said, that just go to church, they go through the motions basically, and there's no fruit, and they don't want to, you know, grow, and they don't want to help others grow. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but such
you're
a good
fine.
point.
You're fine. And like even in that movie, it was like briefly mentioned in like one of his prayers. His prayers was when Mr. Moore was like praying over the discipleship group. He was like, you know, I pray that these coming up generations is not just ones of lukewarm Christians, that we need disciples of Jesus. And that's just the whole theme of discipleship, is like, you know, of you being accountable with someone, of you truly pursuing the Lord, and not just saying it, you know, not living for the world, you know, for 6 days and then coming on Sunday and, you know, thinking that you're a Christian.
Monday morning faith.
You know, and again, like you're counting that cost. Like, what is the cost in my life to follow the Lord? And not many people do that.
Right.
Well, I think the ultimate cost too is like, and we read it in that text in Luke, and even in the movie, there's a reference because Isaiah was like, "Well, what now?" And he's like, "Well, something's gonna have to die."
Yeah.
And that death that he's talking about is ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
because we all have a vision of what life should look like, how our life should go in this chapter, the next chapter, and so forth. But we have to remember who the author is. We're just characters in the story. We don't get to write it. God is the one that has already written the story for us, and it is our job to just live in obedience and joy unto him.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you die to yourself, that's where you find true freedom. That is ultimately where freedom is found, when you look past yourself and you serve this kingdom that is totally upside down to what the world says. Christ serves in an upside down kingdom. He came to serve, not be served. We should replicate just that. And so at the end of the day, man, just die to yourself, which is we said it a few weeks ago at college group. The call to every Christian is this: come dine with us, meaning come sit down. You're a part of this, but also come die with us, because we're in this for not our own name. but the name of Christ, the name that is above all names.
I don't think any of us are saying that it's going to be easy either. There was like a part of the movie.
Absolutely not.
There was some things that you're going to have to give up in your life. Some things that you're physically going to have to take the trash out. And there was part of the movie where Isaiah was like constantly playing the video games. And once he started to like get into this discipleship, he was like, okay, what needs to go? And he just kind of glanced over at the PlayStation and he was like, it's that. He's like, no, but why this? And then he actually takes it and then puts it all in a box and says for the Goodwill or something like that, where his mom would like take it out. And you have to rid your life of these things. So I don't think anyone's going to say it's easy.
And I also don't think like it's not everybody's like, we're not saying go sell your video games like that's going to be different for every person.
Right.
There's been times in my life through my walk with Christ, like I've had to delete social media. There have been times where I've had to start saying no to people, because that's a common misconception for all of us of like, I never know how to say no. Carson just told that to us. In
I
our
wasn't gonna
accountability.
laugh until you start laughing. I wasn't even gonna bring that situation up. Can I tell the people how great of a person you are? Okay, so before we wrap up on this, just to show how big of a heart Karson has for serving other people, we were out playing pickleball as we normally do on Sunday evenings with the church family in Conway, and there was a homeless lady who came up, and she was basically telling us that the police is making her leave because she was living at the park, and it's a public park, so the city owns it. And she had to leave by like midnight or something, that they were kicking her out, and she didn't like have anywhere to go. Well, we were kind of like all scrambling, like trying to figure out, like we wanted to help her. Eden's standing there sharing the gospel with her. And I was in the middle of a game. So I was like, I don't know like what we can do for her. And then we kind of started like throwing around the topic of getting her a hotel. And I was thinking about, like we'll put her up. I have a Hilton account. I was like, well, we can do a Hilton hotel. But then I was thinking, well, if she doesn't leave, then that's going to be under my name. Like that could just be like a whole domino effect.
How close is a Hilton hotel to
right. We were going to like Uber her somewhere, whatever. But then Karson, he was like, I'm not leaving until like I figure something out for her. The heart of gold this man has. He gives her money. She had a certain amount of money, but there was a certain amount that it cost to cover a hotel that was like right down the road. And he gave her that money, took her and all of her stuff in his truck, drove her to the hotel and dropped her off. And I don't know where she went after that, but
he gave her some food as well. But
Eden and I sat there.
Now you're adding.
Now I'm adding on to it.
No, Eden and I just like kind of sat there and we were like, we cried. I cried on my way home. I was like, it's just good to know that there were just good people.
But why is that so? Why is that so rare?
Yeah. I know that's a good point.
Like why is that?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we
crying over it? Because it should be happening all the time.
Like I do praise you for that, because not a lot of people, even myself in that moment, I'm like,
suck for that, Karson.
No, but it's just like
taken away.
Why isn't every Christian jumping on an opportunity? And I understand there are some cases where it's like, this person, if I give him money, I know where the money's going towards, but
right.
Like you're making a premeditated judgment.
Yeah.
And so like why did you do what you did?
So I did what I did just because, I mean, it was a very similar feeling to when I got saved. It was like the Holy Spirit like took me and like almost forced me to like go down to that altar and like repent. Like it was all of God.
Mm-hmm.
But and like in that moment, that's like what I felt. I felt like I couldn't get away from this. Like I had to do something about it.
Yeah.
And like with these like certain situations that arise, you have to have discernment. Do you think that this person is going to use this money and just go and buy drugs and stuff? I was not getting that feeling at all. And she said, I just need to go to a place tonight, and she had some of her own money. And a verse that just kept on coming to my mind is, well, of course, first the gospel. Eden spread the gospel to her, and even on the way to that motel, I like even spread it again. But this verse in James just kept on coming to my mind like during that whole process. It said, if, in James 2, verse 15, if a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. That verse was just circulating through my mind over and over, and I was like, I just can't get away from this. Like, I have to help her. But yeah, I mean, the Bible talks about don't like boast of your own good works. Let like other people boast for it.
Don't worry, I got you.
And I like wasn't even going to bring it up. But yeah, I mean, like these things shouldn't be a
rarity.
A rarity, yes. It should be commonplace in the like Christian life.
Mm-hmm. We shouldn't even have to get to this point, honestly, and that's a whole nother discussion. How these people even get.
But
to
that's
like, the
also
place
an example why we need discipleship. We saw what Karson did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like we should see that and be like, man, I hope that I can replicate that in the days to come, and vice versa. Like we should all be. That's it's a domino effect, like you said. Like we should all be taking away things from other Christians and applying them to our own life. And so, well done, good and faithful. That's that's what I hope I hear.
I think that's a good way to end the discipleship conversation. Okay, before we wrap up the entire podcast,
the most important part of
the most important part of the podcast is football. Karson, I know that you're not a football fan, so I didn't send these to you, but we're gonna read them out loud and you can answer them as well.
We need to eventually make a graphic with our
the tallies. Yeah. I think you went like 3-2 last week. I was
still not good.
2-3, unfortunately. Okay, so not many big games this week, but there are like some good unranked matchups. Yeah. But the first one we have is the big one. Number 3 Texas at number 10 Michigan. It's big noon kickoff.
Great.
I was like, what is Rita doing? But she's booing. Amen. She's an Ohio State fan. God love her. And I think Garrett is now a West Virginia fan. He did buy a jersey.
Well,
yes. Praise be to Jesus.
He bought the jersey because
he's ready to go back to Morgantown. You know, there's a saying in West Virginia, Morgantown ain't ready for me, but Morgantown is always ready for you and will always beat you. I think
it wasn't ready for Penn State. It was not ready for Penn State, baby.
Garrett took on Morgantown like a champ. I got him
bless
a shirt
his heart,
made.
Man.
This poor guy. I thought it was just a nice gesture.
Can we
funny.
put that graphic in this video?
I'll put the picture up right now, but as you can see, it's a shirt that says, I just hope both teams have fun. It's a WV and a Penn State. My aunt made it, and I was thinking, I see a lot of people who, are just there to have fun with the guys, and we get them the shirt. Well, I didn't think that everyone would be walking by, pointing it out, and like talking
laughing
to him,
at him, making fun of him,
calling him names.
He finally got to a point where he's like, you know what? He saw a jersey. He said 50% off. He said, I'm buying this. I don't know. I don't care about West Virginia, but. And I told him, I said, I give you permission to cheer on the Mountaineers for that day.
And he did.
But anyways, Texas at Michigan, there's only one right answer. Hook 'em, baby.
This is like
Texas forever.
Get out of here. This is one of the games I hope they both like lose.
No.
Can they tie, please? I hate Texas. I can't stand Texas.
What do you have against them?
Big 12.
Oh, yeah.
We were in a conference together.
I forgot about that.
I'm going Michigan. I hate them both with a burning passion because we had a coach that left West Virginia, went to Michigan. Still can't stand that, but I would like to see Michigan rise up the ranks, get to like number 2, and then lose to Ohio State again every single year except the past like 2 years. Karson, you got a pick on that one?
So Texas and Michigan. So
Texas
which one
at
is
Michigan.
Right,
Texas.
Number 3 Texas at number 10 Michigan.
I'm going Texas.
He said horns up. Okay. I think you should have a strong opinion on this one. We got South Carolina at Kentucky. Both 1-0. Early season conference game. Oh.
Really? There's just no hesitation there.
That is so disappointing.
After watching USC last week, and it's early, like you just said,
know.
but I think Kentucky, like, they're one of those teams in the SEC that they can cause some damage.
I want to go to a game there. I just like all the blue, but I'm going Gamecocks.
My gut is telling me to not pull for my own team, but I can't do that. I can't. So I'm going to say Gamecocks.
That was
if it was game day, like yeah, you have to cheer. Like you have to choose that.
Well, that was like me last week. Like deep down, did I think that West Virginia was going to win? Probably not. But will I ever bet against them? No. And that never works out for me. So we got the third one is Iowa State at number 21, Iowa. Rivalry game. I can't stand Iowa either, but they also like suck on offense. And Iowa State is Big 12, which means high scoring. I'm going Cyclones at the upset.
Wait, so it's Iowa and who?
Iowa State at number 21, Iowa.
Oh, okay.
I love that Iowa does the wave to the children's hospital
The
after
connect
at
wave.
the end of the first quarter. It's not why I'm picking them. I am taking Iowa though. Every year I pick Iowa State against Iowa, and Iowa State always disappoints me. And so I think it's going to be a low-scoring battle. I think it's going to be honestly 10-7 or something like that. So I'm taking the Hawkeyes though at home.
Okay.
I have 2 tickets for the West Virginia Iowa State game if anyone wants them. Just putting that out there.
Is it at Iowa State?
No, it's at West Virginia.
I guess I'll go Iowa.
Iowa.
I don't know.
So far
Hawkeyes.
he's chosen. Okay, no, yeah, I respect your pick so
Our
far.
3 are not together at all.
Yeah.
Okay, a ranked one, number 14, Tennessee, Rocky Top versus number 24, NC State and Charlotte. It's the Dukes. Mayo. PJ loves Mayo, by the way. We found out. If you watch the vlog, you'll understand why.
Disgusting.
I got NC State. Grayson McCall. Tennessee does not have a good record at the stadium in Charlotte. West Virginia beats them. West Virginia plays them again here in a few years in Charlotte. We're gonna win again. Go Grayson McCall. Go Wolfpack. Beat Rocky Top.
Now, NC State is a different team from North Carolina, correct?
Correct.
Like NC
It's
State.
State. They're all together.
Okay.
It's
Shut
Raleigh.
up, PJ. I just wanted to clarify.
The football fan here.
I want to have a Garrett and Karson Todd
Yeah.
make picks with each other.
They're like, who?
Yeah.
What's
Wolfpack. I like that. I'll choose them.
I'll go with Tennessee because of Kirk. Because Kirk just left.
Shout out
us
to Kirk
and,
Wynn.
and I'm missing him.
We miss you. I've talked to you 3 times. But
It's gonna be Tennessee easily.
Mm-mm.
Easily.
Mm-mm.
Listen.
I already lost one bet.
NC State had to come back against Western Carolina.
Early game.
Jitters. No, Tennessee is an underdog in the SEC this season. They're going to come out and they are going to pummel the Wolfpack. I don't even know what the
Whoa.
spread is that game, but I've got them by at least 2 scores. They are going to win
It's
this
in
game,
Charlotte.
and they're going to
They're
easily
just not
win.
good in Charlotte. That's my thing.
Okay,
but
I'm so far I'm 4-0. I think so.
none of ours are going to align, so this is going to be an interesting. We'll have to count the tallies next week. Okay, last one is Colorado at Nebraska. Old rivals. You have no idea anything about that rivalry, do you?
Yeah.
They're old Big 12 rivals.
Colorado is the team that it was the dad is the coach, and then the
Sanders.
Yeah,
son-
Deion
Yeah.
Sanders.
Yeah,
Very
see,
good,
I know
Carson.
something.
Very good, very good. Yes.
And
so
Nebraska's always one of those teams they hype up every year. That
I want them to succeed, because they used to be
Corn
good.
Huskers.
So my grandparents, they used to go to all of these West Virginia
You should see
games.
my
Okay,
mother
cut
eat
me
a corn
off.
on the cob. It's
What?
it's pretty miraculous how I think if I could enter her in any contest. Were you the one that asked the question if you had to defeat somebody in a room, like you were in a room with
Oh,
100 other people?
It wasn't me. But
But do
I
you
know
remember
what
that
you're
question?
talking- Yeah.
So if you were in a room with 100 other people and you had to beat them at one thing to get out, like all 100, what would it be? Mine was NCAA 14, like
Mhm.
on the Xbox 360. My mother's would be to who can eat the fastest corn on the cob, because that lady, I kid you not, could eat it in like 18 seconds.
Kimberly, we are clipping this and sending it to you and posting it all for the world
She's gonna
to
hate me
see.
for
She's
it.
going to be like, what in the world, BJ? Interesting. Anyway, my grandparents used to go to the West Virginia games in like the 80s and 90s, and they went to the Gator Bowl one time for West Virginia game, I think it was. But Nebraska was also playing a bowl game, the same stadium, different day, but they went to that as well, became friends with Nebraska people, and then they started like traveling together, and they met up, and then they all died. But so I'm going
Okay.
I'm going Nebraska for that reason. That took a turn.
Well, okay. Carson,
So Nebraska or Colorado.
it's at Nebraska.
It's at Nebraska.
Neither team
Big
is
Red.
ranked.
Neither team is ranked.
Raina's in shock still.
I'll go Colorado.
Okay. I'm
You
surprised.
just want to be like PJ, don't you?
No, I'm not taking Colorado.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, he's not taking Colorado.
I can, like, Dion has gotten to a point where, like, there's just a lot of pride there.
Overrated.
Like, not prime time, it's pride time. Like, that's
Ooh.
where he, like,
Ooh,
he masters in that. And so, like, he says he's a Christian, and I really hope that is true. But I think Colorado's defense is horrible. I think Nebraska's got this freshman quarterback that can really do some damage. Nebraska's at home. Colorado beat them last year, and I think after that game, that's when they ranked them and stuff. But I think that Nebraska gets the job done at home. So.
Do I love what he's done for Colorado, bringing like the atmosphere back?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Bringing that,
for
yes.
sure.
But the arrogance is there, and I'm so tired of hearing about him. It's like Taylor Swift in the NFL. I get a Fox News alert 2 hours before kickoff last night of the Ravens and Chiefs game, and it's Fox News. Fox News, what are you doing? It sends out something about what she's wearing, what she's styling for the Chiefs game. I'm like, I did not miss this. I can't stand it. But those two go together. I don't think I'll ever pick Colorado or the Chiefs for that reason. So that was kind of it on our picks. But I have an upset alert. Upset alert, App State at Clemson. Shout out to the Bentons. I hate App State with a passion. That's the good Christian in me. I can't stand them. They are a bunch of liberal hillbillies. They are not nice people. I've been there twice.
Who is this?
App State.
Oh. You're taking them?
Huh?
But you're picking them?
I'm picking App State. I think it's a little upset, a little fun one.
I think the spread is a little bit much. It's 16.5 in Clemson's favor, but I think Clemson wins. I think App State covers the spread though.
App State beat Carolina a couple years ago. App State can beat anyone on any given day. I'll give them that, and I think they do upset Clemson. But that's just what's the word? Not hatred, but like I can't stand Clemson.
We can tell.
And their fans are just obnoxious.
My wife's a graduate from Clemson.
It was so good. It was so good to see Georgia win by more than what Penn State beat West Virginia by. So that was a win in my book.
They won by 31. We won by 22.
Made my heart happy. I loved it.
So we can just celebrate the fact that college football's back.
Amen. Amen. All right, so that wraps it up for episode 3. I can't believe we've already done 3 episodes of season 2 of the Battle Belongs podcast. Stay tuned for next week. We have Kimberly Fletcher, president and CEO of Moms for America. We are going to continue this like back to school type topic series. We're going to be discussing how parents can fight to protect their children from the indoctrination and all of this evil ideology that is running rampant in our schools across the country. Be sure to like, subscribe to the podcast, share it with your friends, share it with your family. Follow us on social media at Battle Belongs Podcast on TikTok and Instagram, and then at Battle Belongs on X. And you can stay tuned. Find out more about the podcast on there. We got our new business cards today. I gave him some, and we have merch coming soon. I got a candle. Yeah, the candle's already been made. We have some merch coming soon. Anyway, any last thoughts? You're just here. That's gonna be your merch line. I'm just here.
I'm just here.
All right. See you next week. God bless.